The phone vibrated at 2:37 in the morning. Skylar's voice cut through the darkness like a choked cry. "Mom, I'm at the precinct. My husband hit me and then filed a report saying I attacked him. They believe him, not me." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and then she said something that made my entire body tense up. "There's an officer on duty here. He's nervous. He keeps looking at me like he knows me." I sprang out of bed without thinking, without turning on lights, without losing a second. I started the car and the empty streets became a black blur beneath my tires. Skylar was still on the line, her breathing ragged, her weeping suppressed. "Darius has a cut on his arm, Mom. He told them I attacked him with a knife. There's blood on his shirt. He looks like the perfect victim." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I knew that scene. I had seen it 1,000 times. The abuser turned victim. The victim turned criminal. But I never thought I would hear those words come from my own daughter. "Which precinct?" I asked, and my voice came out like cold steel. 10th Street, she replied through sobs. 10th Street? My heart skipped a beat. That precinct, that district? I sped up. The red light meant nothing. I blew through it. The streets of the sleeping city had no right to stop me. Not tonight. Not when my daughter was trapped in a holding room while her abuser walked free with a fake wound and a well-rehearsed story. I arrived in 12 minutes. It should have taken 20. I didn't care. I double-parked right in front of the entrance. The precinct's fluorescent lights sliced through the night like white knives. I pushed open the glass door. The air inside smelled of stale coffee and fear. A young officer was behind the desk. He looked up. He saw me and something shifted in his face. He paused it. His hand stopped halfway to the keyboard. His eyes went wide as if he'd seen a ghost. "Excuse me," he stammered. "I didn't know." The sentence died on his lips. I stared. At him. I didn't say anything yet. I just looked. And in that silence, in those 3 eternal seconds, I saw his throat move as he swallowed. I saw his hands tremble slightly. I saw recognition. I saw fear. "Officer," I finally said, and my voice filled the empty space like a sentence handed down from the bench. "I am here for my daughter, Skylar Hayes, and you are going to explain exactly what is happening here." Officer Miles, according to his badge, stood up so quickly that his chair rolled backward. "Judge Estelle," he whispered. "Judge." It had been 5 years since anyone had called me that. 5 years since I left the bench, but he recognized me. And by the way, his eyes darted between my face and the hallway leading to the holding rooms. I knew that my presence had triggered an alarm in his memory. "I didn't know the detainee was your daughter," he continued, his voice growing softer. "The husband filed the report first. He came in bleeding, said she attacked him. We have protocol." "Protocol?" I repeated. The word tasted like venom in my mouth. I took a step toward the counter. Miles instinctively backed up. "Where is my daughter now?" He pointed a shaky hand down the hall. "Waiting room. We haven't booked her yet. Captain Cole is reviewing the case personally. He and Mr. Croft, they're acquainted." Of course. Of course they were. Men like Darius always have friends in convenient places. They always know the captain, the judge, the prosecutor. They always have a network that protects them while their victims drown. "Take me to her," I ordered. Miles hesitated. He looked toward a closed door at the end of the hall. Behind that door were the captain and probably Darius, playing imaginary golf with words, sealing the official version of events, deciding Skylar's fate while she waited alone, frightened, not understanding how her life had turned into this nightmare. "Now, officer," I insisted, and this time it was not a request. Miles nodded. He led me down the hall. Our footsteps echoed against the gray walls. Every sound reminded me of the thousands of hallways I'd walked, the thousands of cases, the thousands of women. But I never imagined I'd walk this hall for my own daughter. Miles opened a door and there was Skylar, sitting in a plastic chair, hunched over herself, hugging her knees. She looked up when we entered. Her eyes were swollen, red, empty of hope. But when she saw me, something shattered on her face. "Mom," she whispered, and she rose, stumbling. She ran toward me. I held her as she collapsed into my arms. I felt her body trembling. I felt every sob that shook her chest, and I felt something else, something that chilled my blood, bruises. As she clung to me under the sleeve of her sweater, I saw the dark edge of an old contusion, not from tonight, but from days, perhaps weeks ago. I gently pulled the fabric away. Skylar tried to cover up, but it was too late. I saw the bruises creeping up her arm like a map of violence. Finger marks, dark lines where someone had held her tight many times. Skylar, I whispered, and my voice broke for the first time. How long? She shook her head. Tears streamed down her face. I couldn't tell you, Mom. I couldn't. You were a judge your whole life helping women like me. I didn't want you to think I'd failed, but I was stupid that I didn't see the signs. I closed my eyes. The pain in her voice was unbearable. I held her tighter. You didn't fail, I told her into her ear. He failed. The system is failing right now, but I am not going to fail you. I pulled away from her and looked at Miles, who was still in the doorway, watching the scene with an uncomfortable expression. Officer, I said, wiping tears with the back of my hand, I need to see the complaint report. I need to see Darius Croft, and I need to speak with Captain Cole. Miles swallowed again. Judge Estelle, I remember your face because you saved my sister 10 years ago, Morales versus Morales case. You issued the protection order that saved her life. I was 19 and I was in the courtroom when you sentenced that man. Silence fell like a stone. Miles looked at me with something that resembled reverence mixed with guilt. I didn't know Ms. Hayes was your daughter when they brought her in, he continued. Darius arrived first, bleeding, calm, convincing. Said she went crazy, that she attacked him without reason, that she needed psychiatric help. Captain Cole knows him from the country club. They were having coffee while they waited for us to bring your daughter in. Every word was a nail. Every detail confirmed what I already knew. The system was designed to believe men like Darius. Where is he now? I asked. Miles pointed to the office door down the hall. In the captain's office, giving his official statement. I turned back to Skylar. I took her face in my hands. Look at me, I said. She obeyed, her eyes full of terror and shame. This night ends differently. Do you hear me? This is not going to be like the other cases you watched fail. I know every trick, every lie, every manipulation. I know exactly how to destroy them. Something changed in her gaze. A small flicker, fragile as glass. Hope. I turned toward the door, toward the hallway, toward the office where Darius was building his castle of lies. When I am done, he is going to wish he never had coffee with Darius Croft. My footsteps resonated, firm, determined. 34 years of experience walked with me. 34 years of knowing every loophole in the law, every weak point in a false accusation. I reached the office door. I didn't knock. I pushed it open. Captain Cole looked up from his desk. Darius was sitting across from him, leaning back in the chair as if he were in his living room. Impeccable white dress shirt, black slacks, a watch that cost more than $5,000 gleaming on his wrist, a clean, perfectly placed bandage on his left forearm. He looked tired, worried, the perfect victim. When he saw me enter, something crossed his face. Surprise, then calculation, then that smile I'd seen before on other men who thought they could manipulate any situation. Estelle, he said, standing up with fake courtesy. I didn't expect to see you here. His voice was smooth, controlled, like velvet over knives. How could I not be here? I replied, closing the door behind me. My daughter is detained because you beat her, and then you had the audacity to file a false report. Cole stood up too, hands raised as if to calm a situation that was just beginning. Estelle, I understand this is difficult, but there are procedures. Darius came in first. He has an injury. There's protocol to follow. Protocol? I repeated, walking toward the desk. Let's talk about protocol then. Cole, did you do a full forensic body examination of my daughter? Did you check her for injuries? Did you photograph her wounds or just that superficial cut on Darius's arm? The captain blinked. His mouth opened slightly. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer was in his silence. Darius cleared his throat. Estelle, I know you're her mother, and this must be terrible for you. But Skylar is not well. She's been under a lot of stress. She lost control tonight. I was only trying to defend myself. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the performance, the carefully rehearsed posture, the eyes seeking sympathy, the hands moving with measured gestures. This man had practiced. He knew exactly how to look innocent, how to sound reasonable, how to turn the violence he perpetrated into an episode of madness by his victim. How long have you been planning this, Darius? I asked, and my voice was ice. How long have you been preparing this story? A week? A month? Since when did you decide that if Skylar ever tried to leave, you'd turn her into a criminal? His mask wavered. Just a second, a flicker. But I saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, he replied. Now his voice had an edge. I'm here because my wife attacked me with a knife. I have the injury. I have witnesses who heard the commotion. I have the right to file a report. I stepped closer. Cole tried to intervene, but I ignored him. Witnesses? I said. Which witnesses, Darius? The neighbors who called the police? The same ones who have heard screaming coming from your condo for months. Those witnesses. The color drained from his face barely, almost imperceptibly. But it was there. The neighbors have nothing to do with this, he stammered. I smiled. It was not a kind smile. Oh, but they do have everything to do with it. Because when Miles goes to take their statements, they are going to tell a very different story from yours. They're going to talk about the nights they heard Skylar begging you to stop. They're going to talk about the pounding against the walls, the broken dishes, the day they saw her with a black eye and you said she had fallen down. Darius sat down. The mask was starting to crack. Cole cleared his throat. Estelle, I appreciate your concern, but this is not a courtroom. You can't just come in here and interrogate. I can't. I cut him off, turning to face him. Cole, I've known you for 20 years. We shared cases. We worked together when you were just an officer. So, I'm going to tell you something I hope you remember. If you process my daughter without doing a complete investigation, without examining her, without taking statements from all the witnesses, I will sue you personally, and then I will make sure every judge, every prosecutor, every officer in this city knows that you let your friendship with an abuser cloud your judgment. The silence in that office was absolute. Cole stared at me, his eyes wide. Darius had lost all composure. His jaw was tense. His hands were gripping the armrests of the chair. This is intimidation, he hissed. No, I replied calmly. This is justice. Something you have avoided for a long time. I turned back to Miles, who was still in the doorway. Officer, I need you to do something for me. I need you to take Skylar to the hospital right now. Full forensic body exam, photographs of all her injuries, detailed medical report. Miles looked at Cole, seeking approval. The captain was paralyzed. He didn't know what to do. His friend from the country club was being dismantled in front of his eyes. His comfortable version of events was crumbling. Do it, Cole finally said, his voice weak. Miles nodded and left quickly. Darius abruptly stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here. I have a real wound. Skylar is making things up. Making up what? I interrupted him. The bruises that are weeks old, the ribs that are probably fractured, the burns on her back. I watched his eyes widen. I had said too much. I mentioned the burns. Something he thought no one knew about. Something Skylar had hidden even from me until tonight. How? He started to ask, but stopped. Too late. Cole had noticed it too. Burns? The captain asked slowly. Darius quickly regained his composure. I don't know what she's talking about. She's inventing things to protect her daughter. But the crack was there, and I was going to turn it into an abyss. I pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. It answered on the third ring. Jordan, I said, my oldest daughter, Skylar's sister. Mom, what's going on? It's 3 in the morning. Her voice sounded drowsy, confused. Jordan, I need you to come to the 10th Street precinct now. Skylar is here. Darius hit her and filed a false report. I need you to bring something. There was silence. Then I heard movement. Bed sheets, quick footsteps. What do you need? She asked. And now her voice was steel. The flash drive. The one Skylar gave you 2 months ago. The one she asked you to hold on to. Another silence, this one heavier. Mom, how do you know about that? Because I know my daughter, I replied. Because I know that women in situations like this always find ways to protect themselves. They always leave hidden evidence. They always have an escape plan. Bring it now. I hung up. Darius was pale. What flash drive? He asked, and his voice trembled. I smiled again. The one with the recordings, Darius. The recordings Skylar made over the last 3 months. Every time you threatened her, every time you hit her, every time you told her, no one would believe her over you. It was a bluff. I didn't know for certain that flash drive existed. But I knew the pattern. I knew how survivors worked, and I knew Skylar. My daughter was intelligent. Scared, yes. Trapped, yes, but intelligent. And by the way, Darius had just lost all the color in his face. I knew I had guessed right. That is illegal, he stammered. Recording without consent is its admissible evidence in domestic violence cases. I interrupted. You would know that if you paid attention to the laws instead of looking for ways to break them. Cole sank into his chair. He was finally understanding. He was finally seeing what was in front of him. A man who had orchestrated everything, who had cut himself, who had come in first to control the narrative. Belief. What? Cole, we're friends. We play golf every Thursday. You know my character. You know I don't know anything. Cole interrupted him, and for the first time that night I heard real authority in his voice, and that's the problem. The door opened. Miles rushed in. Captain, the ambulance is here to take Miss Hayes to the hospital. The paramedics say she has visible signs of trauma, bruising in different stages of healing, possible fractured ribs, ligature marks on her wrists. Every word was a hammer blow. Darius slumped in his chair. His perfect world, his perfect plan was disintegrating. Also, Miles continued, looking at me briefly. The neighbors from apartment 203 and 205 are here. They said they heard the call on the radio and want to give their statements. They say it's important. Cole nodded. Let them in. 2 people entered, an older woman in a housecoat and a tired-looking man around 50 years old. I recognized them as living in Schuyler's building. Officers. The woman, Miss Evelyn Tate, said without preamble, we came to tell the truth. That man, she pointed at Darius, has been abusing that poor girl for months. We've heard everything. The screams, the banging, the begging. We called the police 3 times, Miss Tate continued, but every time you arrived, he said everything was fine and you left. The man, Mr. Leonard Bell, nodded. Tonight was different. We heard glass break. We heard Schuyler scream that he was going to kill her. Then silence. Then we saw him leave with his arm bleeding, but walking calmly like nothing happened. That's not the behavior of someone who just got attacked. That's the behavior of someone executing a plan. Darius stood up abruptly. You don't know anything. You weren't inside the apartment. You didn't see. We saw enough. The woman interrupted him. And this time we are not going to be silent. Darius opened his mouth to reply, but Cole raised his hand. Enough. The captain rubbed his temples. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 20 minutes. Miles, take the complete statements from these witnesses. Every detail, every date they remember, every call they made. He turned to Darius. And you stay here. You are not going anywhere until this is sorted out. I watched Darius's mask finally crumble completely. The elegant composure evaporated. This is a conspiracy, he spat. You're all against me because she, he pointed a trembling finger at me, is a former judge. She has influence. She's manipulating you. No, I said with chilling calm. You are the one who manipulates. I am only exposing the truth. I walked out of the office. I didn't need to see more. Darius could scream all he wanted. His words no longer held power. The evidence would speak for him, and the evidence never lies. I walked down the hall to where they had taken Schuyler. Paramedics were loading her onto a stretcher. She looked so small, so fragile. I walked over and took her hand. I'm coming with you, I told her. She nodded, gripping my fingers tightly like when she was a child and was afraid of storms. The hospital was 12 minutes away. Schuyler didn't speak during the ride. She just stared at the ambulance ceiling with empty eyes. I held her hand the whole way. The paramedic, a young man about 30, checked her vitals with a serious expression. How long? He asked me quietly. I didn't need to ask what he meant. I don't know, I answered honestly. Months, maybe more than a year. He nodded, writing something on his tablet. I've seen a lot of cases. This one is bad. Injuries in different stages of healing indicate a sustained pattern of abuse. We arrived at the emergency room. The bright lights greeted us like a slap. They took Schuyler directly to an examination room. A middle-aged doctor with her hair pulled back, Dr. Amani Jones, entered almost immediately. I'm Dr. Jones, she said, looking at me briefly before focusing on Schuyler. I'm going to do a complete exam. Is it okay if your mother stays here? Schuyler nodded. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I want her to stay. The doctor began the exam. Every time she discovered a new injury, her expression hardened. Bruises on the arms, on the ribs, on the back, circular marks on her wrists where something had tied her, and the burns, small round scars on her lower back. Old cigarette burns. Skylar winced when the doctor touched them gently. "When was this?" the doctor asked, her voice professional but full of compassion. 3 months ago, Skylar murmured. He was mad because dinner wasn't ready when he got home. He said he needed to teach. Need discipline. I closed my eyes. Every word was a dagger. Every revelation showed me how blind I had been, how many signs I had missed, how many times Skylar had sat across from me, smiling, lying, protecting me from the truth. Because she didn't want to disappoint me. Dr. Jones photographed every injury. She documented everything. "I'm going to order x-rays," she finally said. "I need to check the ribs and I want you to talk to our social worker." She left the room. Skylar and I were left alone. The silence was dense, heavy. "I'm sorry, Mom," she finally whispered. "I should have told you. I didn't interrupt her. Don't apologize. None of this is your fault." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Why didn't you tell me, Skylar? Why did you let it go so far?" Tears ran down her cheeks. "Because you saved so many women your entire career. You dedicated your life to protecting domestic violence victims. And I became one of them. I felt so ashamed, so stupid. I thought if I told you, you would look at me differently. You would think I failed, that I didn't learn anything from you." Her voice broke in sobs. I hugged her, being careful not to press where there were bruises. "Listen to me," I told her firmly. "You didn't fail. He failed. The system failed. I failed for not seeing. But you survived, and that takes more strength than most people have in their whole lives." The door opened. Jordan burst in like a hurricane, hair messy, coat thrown over her pajamas. In her hand, she held a small black flash drive. Skylar gasped, running toward the bed. She hugged her sister so tightly that they both cried. "I brought it," Jordan said, showing me the flash drive. "I didn't listen to all of it. I couldn't. But there are hours of recordings. Skylar gave it to me 2 months ago. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would give it to the police." I took the flash drive. It was light, so small, but it contained the weight of months of terror. "Why didn't you come to me with this?" "Before?" I asked Skylar. She wiped her tears because I was afraid. "Darius always said that if I left him, if I tried to report him, he would destroy me. He said he had contacts, that no one would believe me. That he was Darius Croft, respected businessman, and I was just his unstable wife. He said if I spoke, he'd make sure I lost everything, my job, my family, my freedom." She took a shaky breath. Tonight he lost control more than ever. He broke a bottle, cut his own arm with the glass, and then I saw something in his eyes. I saw he was going to kill me, so I fought back for the first time in months. I fought for real. "And his wound?" I asked. Skylar looked down. I tried to take the glass away from him. He cut himself in the struggle, not deep, barely a scratch, but when he saw the blood, he smiled. He smiled, Mom, and he said, "Now I'm going to the police. I'm going to say you attacked me, and when they arrest you, you'll finally learn your place." She shivered. He called the police. They arrived in 8 minutes. By then, he had already bandaged himself, already rehearsed his story. The officers looked at him in his suit and his calmness, and they looked at me trembling and crying, and I knew they would believe him. Jordan squeezed her sister's hand, but he didn't count on Mom. She smiled through tears. No one counts on Estelle Hayes when someone hurts her family. I put the flash drive in my pocket. "I'm going back to the precinct. I need to give them this. I need to make sure Darius doesn't leave there until he's properly processed." Skylar sat up quickly, panic in her eyes. "Mom, he has a lawyer, Randall Quinn. He's the best defense attorney in the city. He called him before you even arrived. He's going to get out. He's going to—" "He is not getting out," I said with absolute certainty. "Not this time." I kissed her forehead. "Jordan is staying with you. You are not alone anymore." I left the room. The hospital hallway was quiet. It was almost 5 in the morning. I called. "Miles." He answered immediately. "Judge Estelle, I have additional evidence," I said. "Recordings. Is Darius still there?" There was a pause. "Yes." "His lawyer, Randall Quinn, arrived 20 minutes ago. He's demanding we release his client, says there's no probable cause, that Darius's injury is sufficient evidence of assault, and that the neighbors' testimonies are circumstantial. Of course, Randall Quinn, I knew him. Slick, expensive, immoral. He defended anyone who could afford his $1,000 per hour fee. "Tell Cole I'm on my way. Tell him not to process anything until I get there." I hung up. The dawn was starting to break on the horizon. I got into my car. The streets were starting to wake up. Early morning workers, delivery trucks, the city returning to life. But I was still at war, and the battle wasn't over. I arrived at the precinct as the sun barely painted the sky orange and pink. The streets smelled of fresh-baked bread from the corner bakery. Normal life, normal people starting their normal days. While I walked back into that building where my daughter had been treated like a criminal, where her abuser had drunk coffee with the captain as if they were old friends. I pushed open the glass door. The shift had changed. There were new officers at the desk, but Miles was still there. He saw me enter, and something in his expression told me the situation had worsened. "Judge," he said in a low voice, approaching quickly. "Randall Quinn is pressing hard. He threatened to sue the department for illegal detention. He says Darius is the real victim and that we are being influenced by his connection to you." I gripped the flash drive in my pocket. "Where are they?" Miles pointed to the same office as before. "Cole is with them. He looks bad. Judge Randall is good at what he does. He's dismantling every argument. He says the neighbors only heard noises, didn't see anything, that Skylar's injuries could be self-inflicted or from another incident, that the only clear physical evidence is the cut on Darius's arm." I walked toward the office. My steps sounded like sentences. Miles followed me. "There's something else," he added nervously. "Randall already contacted a friendly judge. He has a preliminary release order ready to sign if we don't file solid charges in the next 2 hours. 2 hours. The system designed to protect the innocent being used to free the guilty. I opened the door without knocking. Randall Quinn was standing next to Darius, elegant in his dark gray suit that probably cost $3,000, perfectly combed hair, leather briefcase on the desk. He looked at me with those calculating eyes I had seen in many lawyers who prioritized profit over justice. "Estelle Hayes," he said with a professional smile, "I should have figured you'd be involved. Your daughter attacks my client, and somehow you turn this into a media circus." His tone was condescending, calm, as if he were talking to an irrational child. "Your client," I replied with a voice of steel, "beat my daughter for months. Tonight he tried to kill her, and then he cut himself to create an alibi." Randall laughed, a soft, professional laugh. "Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" "Because I have an injured client, a wife with a history of erratic behavior according to him, and zero forensic evidence to support your narrative." I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. I placed it on Cole's desk with a sharp thump. "Here's your proof." Silence fell like a tombstone. Randall looked at the flash drive. Darius turned pale. "What is that?" the lawyer asked, but his voice had lost some confidence. "Recordings," I said. "Months of secret recordings Skylar made. Every threat, every blow, every time your client told her that if she left him, he would destroy her. Every time he told her no one would believe her because he was Darius Croft and she was nobody." Darius abruptly stood up. "Those recordings are illegal. They can't be used. I didn't give consent." Randall raised his hand to silence him, but it was too late. Cole connected the flash drive to his computer. "In domestic violence cases," the captain said slowly, looking at the screen, "recordings made by victims in their own home are admissible as evidence, especially when there is reasonable fear for their safety." He clicked. The audio began to play. Darius's voice filled the cold office. Cruel, completely different from the educated man who had been sitting there hours ago. "If you tell anyone, Skylar, you will regret it. You think your mother is going to save you? You think anyone is going to believe me? A respected businessman or you, a hysterical wife?" Sound of something breaking, a choke scream. "Shut up, shut up. Or it will be worse." More sounds, thumps, sobs. "This is your fault. Everything is your fault. If you were a better wife, I wouldn't have to do this." Cole paused the recording. His face was ashen. Randall had lost all his elegant composure. "There's more," I said. "Hours more. Different dates, all time-stamped, all verifiable." Randall quickly regained his footing. "This could be edited, manipulated. We'll need forensic audio verification." "Of course," I agreed. "And while they verify it, Darius remains detained without bail because we just heard direct death threats. Because we have medical evidence that matches the dates on the recordings, because we have witnesses. confirming the pattern of abuse. I looked at Darius. He was shaking. The mask had completely fallen. He was no longer the respectable businessman. He was just a scared man who knew his world was collapsing. "Anything to say now, Darius?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes darted between Randall, Cole, and me, looking for escape. There was none. "I want to talk to my lawyer privately," he finally mumbled. Cole nodded. "Miles, take Mr. Croft to the interrogation room. Mr. Quinn can accompany him." When they left, the captain collapsed into his chair. He looked exhausted, ashamed. "Estelle, I didn't know. Darius and I play golf. He seemed like a good guy." "I never imagined." "You never imagined," I interrupted, "because you didn't want to see. Because it was easier to believe the man in the expensive suit than the scared woman." Cole rubbed his face. "You're right, I failed. I should have done the complete exam from the beginning. I should have listened to the neighbors months ago when they called. I should have. You should have," I agreed. "But now you can correct it. Process D. R. Darius, full charges, aggravated assault, felony battery, threats, continuous domestic abuse, and make sure he doesn't get bail." He nodded slowly. "I will. I'll call the assistant district attorney on duty." He picked up the phone. "With this evidence, there's no way a judge grants him freedom." While he dialed, I looked out the window. The sun was already high. A new day had begun, but I felt like I had lived an entire week in a single night. My phone vibrated. "Jordan. Mom, the x-rays came back. Skylar has 2 fractured ribs, an old fracture in her wrist that never healed properly, and old head trauma. The doctor says it's consistent with repeated blows over months." I closed my eyes. Every word was confirmation of my worst nightmare. "How is she?" "Sedated. They gave her something for the pain and shock. She's sleeping, but Mom, she told me something before she drifted off. She said Darius has videos. Videos of her in compromising situations. Says he drugged and recorded her. That he uses them to blackmail her. That he threatened to put them online if she left him." The rage I felt in that moment was like lava. Pure, burning, destructive. "Where are those videos, Jordan?" "On his computer in his home office. Skylar says he keeps them there as insurance." I hung up with Jordan and turned back to Cole. "I need a search warrant for Darius's condo and his office." Now, the captain looked up. "Why?" "Because there's more evidence. Evidence of extortion, sexual abuse, crimes that go beyond physical violence." Cole swallowed. He nodded. "Call the duty judge." 30 minutes later, we had the warrant. Miles and 2 other officers prepared to go to the condo. "I'm going with you," I said. Miles seemed to hesitate. "Judge, technically you're an interested party. Your presence could compromise." "I don't care." I interrupted him. "That is the house where my daughter was tortured. I am going." He didn't argue further. We got into the patrol cars. The building where Skylar had lived her nightmare was 15 minutes away. A nice modern high-rise with a doorman and manicured gardens. No one would ever imagine the horrors occurring behind closed doors. The doorman recognized us. His expression was uncomfortable. "Going to Darius Croft's apartment?" Miles asked. He nodded. "We have a search warrant." The doorman lowered his voice. That poor lady, Miss Hayes, always so kind, always smiling. But I knew Doorman always knew. We'd see her enter happy and leave with red eyes, how he would treat her sweetly in public, but look at her coldly when he thought no one was watching. He gave us the master key. We went up the elevator. 12th floor, condo 1203. The door opened, revealing an impeccable space, sleek furniture, art on the walls, a beautiful view of the city, a gilded cage where Skylar had been a prisoner. I entered the apartment, and the smell of expensive cologne hit me. Everything was tidy, too tidy. Like a stage set up to impress visitors, abstract paintings on the walls, spotless area rug, a cream-colored leather sofa that probably cost $10,000. But I didn't see luxury. I saw a prison. I saw the place where my daughter had suffered in silence, while the outside world thought she had a perfect life. Miles and the other officers began the systematic search. "The office is back here," I said, remembering the few times I had visited this place. Skylar always insisted we meet at my house. Now I understood why. Darius's office was exactly as I imagined. Dark wood desk, shelves full of books he probably never read, framed diplomas. On the wall, photographs of him shaking hands with important people, politicians, businessmen, judges. A network of power carefully cultivated. Miles turned on the computer. It was password protected. "We'll need technical support too," he started to say. "Try his date of birth." I suggested men like Darius were predictable, arrogant. They believed no one would dare invade their space. Miles tried. It didn't work. Wedding anniversary didn't work either. Then I remembered something Skylar had mentioned once. Try his company name followed by the year he founded it. Miles typed it in. The computer unlocked. Of course, for Darius, his business was more important than any human relationship. Miles started going through files, meticulously organized folders, contracts, financial documents, and then he found it. A hidden folder with no name, just a symbol. Miles clicked. My stomach twisted. Videos, dozens of videos, dates that went back more than a year. "Don't watch them," I said quickly. "Just document that they are there. We need to preserve the chain of custody. This is going to trial." Miles nodded, taking photos of the screen. He called the cybercrimes unit. "I need you to come down. We have sensitive digital evidence." While we waited, I kept exploring the office. I opened drawers, filing cabinets. In the third desk drawer, I found something that chilled my blood. A thick manila folder. I opened it. Photographs. Photographs of Skylar taken without her knowledge. In the shower, sleeping, changing clothes, and something else, documents. Skylar's private medical records that Darius had obtained illegally, reports from her job, psychological evaluations that he had manipulated to make her look unstable. "Miles?" I called. He came over. I showed him the contents of the folder. His expression darkened. "This is systematic stalking, illegal surveillance, identity theft. This is control," I said. Darius didn't just hit her. He studied her. He documented every aspect of her life. He built a complete file to use against her if she ever tried to escape. I found more copies of emails between Darius and Randall Quinn from 6 months ago. In them, Darius discussed strategies to discredit Skylar if she became problematic. They talked about planting doubts about her mental stability, creating false evidence of infidelity, using his connections to ruin her professional reputation. It was a plan, a detailed, calculated plan to destroy her. The cybercrimes technicians arrived. They began copying the entire hard drive, every file, every document, every video. One of them, a young woman with a serious expression, approached me. "Ma'am, what's on this computer is enough for multiple federal charges. Extortion, non-consensual pornography, cyberstalking. This man is a systemic predator." I nodded. I knew it. I always knew it on some level. But having the physical evidence in front of me was different. It was real. It was irrefutable. "How long do you need?" I asked, "for the full analysis?" "Days," she replied, "but to extract the basics and file initial charges, a few hours." I walked out of the office. I needed air. I walked onto the balcony. The view was beautiful. The city spread out like a living map. From up here, everything looked orderly, perfect. But I knew the truth. Behind every window, every door, there were stories, some happy, others dark, like Skylar's. My phone vibrated. "Cole Estelle, Darius is demanding to see a judge. Randall is filing a motion for habeas corpus, says the detention is illegal." I smiled without humor. "Tell Randall we have additional evidence, videos, documents, a premeditated plan of abuse and extortion, and that in the next few hours his client is going to face federal charges in addition to the state ones." There was silence on the other end. Then Cole sighed. "Darius just broke. When we told him about the search warrant, he started screaming, said everything on that computer was private, that we had no right. Randall tried to silence him, but he kept talking. He essentially confessed there was compromising material without us even asking him." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Criminals always betray themselves, always. Keep the recording of that spontaneous confession. Randall will try to suppress it, but with any luck, the judge will admit it." I hung up. Miles came out to join me on the balcony. "Everything is documented. The computer goes to the lab, the physical documents go into evidence." "Good," I said. "Let's go back. I want to be there when they formally process Darius." We went downstairs. The doorman stopped us in the lobby. "Did you find anything?" he asked in a low voice. I shouldn't have answered him. It was an active investigation, but something in his expression made me speak. "We found enough to ensure he never hurts anyone again." The doorman nodded slowly. "Good. That Miss Hayes deserves justice. We all knew it here, but no one did anything, myself included. I'm ashamed." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Now you can do something. If the case goes to trial, they're going to need witnesses, people who saw, who heard, who can confirm the pattern. We'll tell everything, he promised. Back at the precinct, the sun was high in the sky. I had been up all night, but I didn't feel tired. I felt purpose. We entered. The energy had changed. Officers were talking in low voices. There were more people. A woman in a formal suit was at the counter. She recognized me immediately. "Judge Hayes," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Assistant District Attorney Aisha Reynolds. Captain Cole brought me up to speed on the case. I knew her reputation. Tough, smart, with an impressive history of convictions in domestic violence cases. I need to review all the evidence," she continued. "The recordings, the medical reports, the testimonies. If this is as solid as they told me, I'm going to request detention without bail." "It is solid," I assured her, "and there's more. We just seized a computer with evidence of additional felonies, extortion, revenge, pornography, systematic harassment." Patricia's eyes gleamed, not with joy, but with determination. "Perfect. I'm going to bury this man so deep he'll never see the light of day." I liked her style. Direct, no nonsense. "Where is Darius now?" I asked. "Interrogation room 3. Randall is with him. They're waiting for the bail hearing." Patricia checked her watch. "It will be in 2 hours. Enough time for me to prepare my case." She turned to Miles. "Officer, I need certified copies of everything. Every recording, every photo, every statement. I want them on my desk in 1 hour." I sat down in a chair in the hallway. I finally felt the weight of exhaustion. I closed my eyes for a moment, just a moment, and I saw Skylar's face. Not the scared face from tonight, but her face as a child, laughing, running, free. My phone vibrated, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Jordan. Mom. Skylar woke up. She's asking for you. She wants to know what happened to Darius." I stood up. "Tell her I'm on my way. Tell her Darius is not getting out. Tell her this time." The system worked. I drove back to the hospital. The mid-M morning traffic was dense. Office workers rushing to jobs they hated. Mothers taking children to school. Normal life flowing around my personal dorm. I arrived at the hospital, went up to the 4th floor. Skylar's room was at the end of the hall. I knocked gently before entering. Skylar was sitting up in bed, still pale, still with visible marks on her face, but her eyes held something different. It was no longer the desperate emptiness of last night. There was a faint glimmer, fragile hope. Jordan was sitting next to her, holding her hand. "Mom," Skylar said when she saw me. Her voice was raspy, tired. "It's true. They really found everything." I sat on the other side of the bed. "We found it. The recordings you made, the videos he made, the documents, everything. Darius is detained. The prosecutor is going to ask that he be denied bail." Tears ran down her cheeks, but this time, they were different. Not tears of fear, but of relief. "I can't believe it's over," she whispered. "I lived with so much fear for so long. Every morning I woke up wondering if that would be the day he killed me. Every night I fell asleep praying to survive until dawn." Jordan squeezed her hand. "You don't have to live like that anymore." Skylar nodded. Then she looked at me with guilt-filled eyes. "Mom, your whole life you helped women like me, and I couldn't even help myself. I feel so ashamed." "No," I said firmly, taking her other hand. "Listen to me, Skylar. What you lived through wasn't weakness. It was survival. You did what you had to do to stay alive. You recorded evidence. You gave it to Jordan. You planned your escape even when it seemed impossible. That is not shame. That is strength." Skylar sobbed. "But I should have left sooner. I should have. There is no should have." I interrupted her. "Abuse victims leave when they can, not when others think they should. The right moment is when you get out alive, and you did it." Jordan embraced both of us. 3 generations of women, broken but not destroyed. Dr. Jones entered with a thick folder. "Good morning. I came to check on you." She examined Skylar, checked her vitals, changed bandages. "The ribs are going to hurt for weeks. You'll need pain medication and rest. The contusions will heal. The physical scars will eventually fade." She paused. "But you need professional help for the wounds that don't show. We have excellent trauma-specialized therapists. I recommend you start as soon as possible." Skylar nodded. "I will. I don't want to carry this alone anymore." The doctor smiled. "Good. I also spoke with the social workers. There are safe shelters if you need a place to stay while you reorganize your life. Restraining orders, free legal assistance. You are not alone in this." She handed her a list of resources. Emergency numbers, support groups, 24-hour crisis lines. "Thank you," Skylar said in a low voice. The doctor left. Silence filled the room. A different silence, not heavy with fear, but charged with possibility, with a future. My phone vibrated. "Miles, Judge, the bail hearing starts in 30 minutes. Aisha is ready. Is she coming?" "I'm coming," I replied. I looked at Skylar. "The bail hearing is in half an hour. Do you want me to stay here with you, or do you want me to go and make sure they don't release him?" Skylar took a deep breath. "Go. I need to know he's not getting out, that he's not coming to find me." I kissed her forehead. "He's not getting out, I promise." Jordan walked with me to the elevator. "Mom, thank you for believing, for fighting, for not giving up." I hugged her. "It's what mothers do. They protect their daughters always." I went down to the parking lot, drove back to the courthouse. The courthouse building was familiar. I had spent decades walking those halls, issuing sentences, changing lives, but I had never been on this side, never as a victim's family member. The courtroom was on the 3rd floor. I walked in. Aisha was already there reviewing documents. She saw me and nodded. Darius was sitting with Randall, still in his clothes from yesterday, now wrinkled, unshaven, red eyes, the mask of the successful businessman completely gone. He saw me enter. Something crossed his face. Hatred, pure hatred, but also fear. I saw him swallow, divert his gaze. The judge entered. "All rise." Judge Sterling, I knew him. We had worked together years ago, fair, strict. He didn't tolerate manipulation. "The state versus Darius Croft," the clerk announced. Aisha stood up. "Your Honor, the state requests detention without bail. The defendant faces charges of aggravated assault, felony battery, threats, continuous domestic abuse, extortion, cyberstalking, and non-consensual pornography. He is a clear danger to the victim and the community." Randall stood up. "Your Honor, my client is a respected businessman with no criminal record. He has deep roots in the community. He is not a flight risk. Detention without bail is excessive." Judge Sterling looked at the documents in front of him. "Prosecutor, do you have evidence to support these charges?" Aisha opened her briefcase. "I have audio recordings where the defendant explicitly threatens the victim. Medical reports documenting injuries in different stages of healing consistent with prolonged abuse. Neighbor testimonies confirming the pattern. Digital evidence seized from the defendant's residence showing premeditated planning of abuse and extortion. And forensic photographs taken this morning showing the severity of the most recent attack." The judge held out his hand. Aisha handed him a folder. He began to review it. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. You could only hear the turning of pages. Judge Sterling looked up. His expression was severe. "Mr. Croft, stand up." Darius stood up. He was visibly trembling. "I have reviewed the preliminary evidence presented by the prosecutor. It is one of the most exhaustive and disturbing compilations I have seen in domestic violence cases." He paused. "The recordings alone are sufficient to deny bail. The explicit death threats, the documented pattern of coercive control, the evidence of planning to discredit the victim if she sought help. All of this paints the portrait of an extremely dangerous individual." Randall tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, those recordings could be edited." The judge raised his hand. "Counsel, you will have time to challenge the evidence at trial, but for the purposes of this bail hearing, I find sufficient probable cause." He turned back to Darius. "Mr. Croft, bail is denied. You will remain detained in the county jail until trial. Furthermore, I am issuing a permanent restraining order. You cannot approach within 500 feet of the victim, her family, her workplace, or her residence. Any violation will result in additional charges." Darius collapsed. He literally fell. Randall had to hold him up. No, he stammered. "This can't be happening. I'm Darius Croft. I have rights. I have connections. This is a mistake." The judge banged the gavel. "Officer, remove the defendant." Two bailiffs approached, handcuffed Darius. He continued mumbling, denying his perfect world built on lies and control finally collapsing. They took him out of the room. His protests faded down the hall. Aisha approached me. "It's a good start. Now comes the hard part, building the case for trial. But with all this evidence, I am confident." I left the courtroom feeling something I hadn't felt in hours. Relief. It wasn't victory yet. The trial would come. Darius's lawyers would try every trick. But for now, Skylar was safe. Darius was behind bars where he belonged. I walked through the courthouse hallways. I passed rooms where I had issued hundreds of sentences. I saw my reflection in a window. I looked like I had aged 10 years in one night, but my eyes held fire. Purpose. I wasn't finished. I called Jordan. Darius won't be released. The judge denied bail. I heard a gasp of relief, then weeping. Skylar is crying, but out of happiness. She says for the first time in 2 years, she can breathe. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. I hesitated. I answered. Judge Hayes. It was a woman's voice, young, trembling. Yes. Who is this? There was a pause. My name is Chloe Wilson. I saw the news about Darius Croft, about his arrest. Something in her tone put me on alert. How can I help you? Another silence. Ragged breathing. I dated Darius 3 years ago before he met your daughter, and he did the same thing to me. I closed my eyes. Of course, abusers don't start suddenly. They have a history, they have a pattern. Do you want to talk about it? I asked gently. I need to talk about it, Chloe said, her voice cracking. For 2 years, I lived in terror. He hit me. He controlled me. He had videos of me like the ones they mentioned in the news. When I finally escaped, he threatened me, said if I spoke he'd destroy my life, and I believed him. He had money, contacts, power. So I